You're standing in a misty valley, somewhere in the heart of 12th century England, where the air smells faintly of damp earth and wildflowers. It's early morning, just before dawn, and the world is wrapped in that soft, gray hush that makes you want to pull your blanket closer and subscribe it as a small act of kindness that keeps these sleepy tales buzzing along. This is St. Hilda's Priory, a modest cluster of buildings nestled between rolling hills and a sluggish river that is in no hurry to get anywhere. The year is 1187, and you're here to live a day with the nuns who call this place home. They're not what you expect. The apiary is a short walk from the dormitory, tucked behind a low wattle fence that looks like it was woven by someone with more enthusiasm than skill. That's St. Cecilia's Hive, named for the patron of music, because the nuns swear its hum has a melodic lilt. You tilt your head, trying to hear it. Maybe it's just the sleepiness creeping in, but you can almost believe them. Historians still debate whether this naming tradition was widespread, or just a quirk of certain convents, but at St. Hilda's, it's as serious as their prayers. You watch Sister Agnes murmur something to St. Cecilia's Hive, and you can't help but chuckle. Talking to bees. That is a level of commitment you didn't expect from women who've sworn off most worldly pleasures. The hives are skept straw domes that look like upside-down baskets, each one humming with life. You pause, listening. The sound is hypnotic, like white noise from a meditation app, but earthier, alive. The nuns move among the hives with a calm that borders on reverence, their hands steady as they lift the skeps to check the combs. They don't wear gloves or veils. One of them, Sister Agnes, catches your eye and winks. The bees know us, she says, as if that explains everything. You're not sure you trust a bee's goodwill, but these women seem to have cracked the code. Forget the stern, ruler-wielding sisters of modern imagination. These women are practical, quiet, and just a little bit eccentric. They're up before the sun, already chanting their first prayers in a low, melodic drone that blends with the hum of their beehives outside. The day is beginning, and there's work to be done. Prayers to chant, bread to bake, and honey to harvest. You're already yawning, lulled by the rhythm of this place. It's not exciting, not in the way a battle or a royal scandal might be, but there's something comforting in its slowness. You're starting to understand why the nuns love their bees. They're not just livestock, they're partners in this quiet, sacred life. You glance back at the hives, wondering if St. Cecilia's bees will sing you to sleep tonight. It's as if the bees are praying to, in their own buzzing liturgy. And if you're feeling chatty, drop a comment with your location and local time. St. Hilda's, like many others, owns land, grows crops, and produces goods that sustain both the nuns and the nearby village. But what sets this place apart is the honey. The nuns are famous for its holy honey. They call it blessed in their chapels, and sold to pilgrims who swear it cures everything from sore throats to broken hearts. You smirk at the thought. Sounds like the kind of wellness trend you'd see on a 21st century influencer's page, complete with hashtags and overpriced jars. But here, it's no gimmick. The nuns believe their bees are touched by divine grace. And honestly, after tasting that honey, you're half convinced they're right. Are you tucked in somewhere cozy, or just stealing a moment of calm? Now let's ease into tonight's journey. A faint hum drifts toward you, like a lullaby sung by 1,000 tiny voices. You're not alone. Here, though you probably won't make it through this day without dozing off. That's fine. This is a story for sleep, after all. And if your eyelids get heavy, well, blame the bees. They've been lulling people into naps for centuries. If you're enjoying this gentle drift into the past, please give this video a like. You're in a small convent. Its stone walls cool under your fingertips as you trace their uneven edges. The major historical fact here is that medieval convents like this one were often economic powerhouses in their communities. You step outside, your shoes sinking slightly into the dew-soaked grass. Here's the obscure tidbit. The nuns named their queen bees after saints, the hive you're standing by. As you follow the nuns back toward the convent, you notice the air growing warmer, the mist burning off as the first rays of sunlight touch the hills. You're back in the convent courtyard now. the morning sun casting long shadows across the cobblestones. Remember the wattle fence you passed earlier? It's back, looking even more lopsided in the daylight, like a child's art project left out in the rain. You're trailing behind Sister Agnes, who's carrying a shallow basket of honeycomb wrapped in a linen cloth. This is the Stillroom, where the nuns process their honey and make their remedies. They drizzle it on doorframes during certain feast days, claiming it keeps demons at bay. "Try it," she says, her voice soft but firm, like she's offering you a secret. You dip the spoon and taste. It's sweet, of course, but there's something else, notes of clover, maybe, or the faintest hint of mint. It's like drinking a meadow, if meadows could be bottled. You're starting to see why pilgrims trek miles for this stuff. It's not just food. It's a moment of peace in a world that's often anything but. You linger in the Stillroom, watching the nuns work, their movements slow and deliberate. The hum of the bees outside filters through the open window, blending with the nuns' quiet chatter. You're sinking deeper into the rhythm of this place, and your eyelids are starting to agree. The day is young, but sleep is already calling. You raise an eyebrow, imagining a demon pausing at the threshold, sniffing the honey, and deciding it's not worth the hassle. Historians still debate whether this practice was rooted in Christian symbolism or older pagan traditions, but the nuns don't care about the academic argument. To them, it is just what you do. When you live in a world where spirits might lurk in the shadows, you glance at the doorframe, half expecting to see a sticky golden line, but it's just plain stone today. Shelves line the walls, stacked with clay pots, dried lavender, and bundles of thyme tied with twine. A single candle flickers on a wooden table, its flame dancing like it's trying to stay awake. You get it, candles have a tough job in a place this sleepy. The nuns are already at work, straining honey through muslin cloths and mixing it with herbs for salves. You watch Sister Beatrice, a weary woman with a permanent squint, stir a pot of honey and chamomile. She mutters about balancing the humors, and you suppress a laugh. It's like listening to your friend who swears by essential oils, but with more Latin. The honey smells faintly floral, like it's bottled the essence of the wildflowers dotting the hills. You're tempted to sneak a taste, but Agnes gives you a look that says, "Don't even think about it." She's not stern, just practical, like a barista guarding the last batch of coffee beans before the morning rush. The major historical fact of this moment is that honey was more than a sweetener in medieval Europe. It was a cornerstone of monastic economies. Convents like St. Hilda's didn't just make honey for their own tables. They sold it, traded it, and used it in medicines, candles, and even mead for special feast days. It was as valuable as gold in some markets, especially since sugar was a rare luxury, hoarded by the wealthy like it was the medieval equivalent of a limited edition sneaker drop. The nuns' honey funded their charity work, kept the convent's fires burning, and paid for the parchment they used to copy manuscripts. You picture a nun haggling with a merchant over a jar of honey, and it's hard not to smile. Capitalism, it seems, has ancient roots. You follow Agnes into a small stone building that smells of wax and herbs. Here's the weird cultural tidbit. The nuns believe their honey can ward off evil spirits. Agnes hands you a small wooden spoon and nods at a jar of honey. You're still in the Stillroom, the air thick with the scent of honey and dried herbs. As the morning sun creeps higher, the cobblestone courtyard outside hums with quiet activity, and you can hear the faint clatter of wooden buckets as other nuns fetch water from the river. At St. Hilda's, the nuns' honey-based remedies were sought after by villagers and travelers alike. Used for everything from soothing burns to easing coughs, the motion is slow, deliberate, almost meditative, and you find yourself matching your breaths to the rhythm. They claim a hive will buzz more frantically if someone approaches with a troubled heart, as if the bees are trying to fix the visitor's soul with their hum. You tilt your head toward the window, listening for St. Cecilia's hive outside. Is it buzzing louder, or is it just your imagination, lulled by the Stillroom's warmth? Historians still debate whether this belief was a poetic fancy or a misunderstanding of how bees react to changes in air pressure, but the nuns treat it as gospel. You're not sure you buy it, but you have to admit, standing here feels like being wrapped in a soft, golden calm. The Stillroom feels like a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place where time moves at the pace of a lazy summer afternoon. For sleep, she says, with a knowing look that suggests she's caught you yawning. You take it, feeling the cool clay against your palm, and wonder if this is the medieval equivalent of a bedtime tea. The nuns move around you, their habits rustling softly, their voices a low murmur of Latin prayers and practical instructions. You're starting to feel like an honorary member of this quiet sisterhood, though you suspect they laugh at your modern notions of productivity. You lean against the stone wall, letting the hum of the hives outside pull you deeper into this drowsy, honey-scented world. You notice a small clay jar on the shelf labeled for melancholy, and Beatrice catches you staring. "Honey and mint," she says, her voice dry as old parchment. Lifts the soul when it's heavier than a cart of turnips. You chuckle, picturing a medieval self-help book with that exact advice. It's not a bad idea. Honestly, your local coffee shop could learn a thing or two from these nuns. Their knowledge came from ancient texts, like those of Hippocrates and Galen, painstakingly copied in the convent scriptorium. You picture a nun hunched over a parchment, her quill scratching out recipes in candlelight, and it's oddly comforting, like imagining your grandma perfecting her cookie recipe, but with more Latin and fewer chocolate chips. These women weren't just praying, they were healing, using their bees as unwitting partners in a proto-healthcare system. Remember that sluggish river you saw earlier, winding lazily through the valley? It's back, reflecting the sky like a half-hearted mirror that's too tired to shine. You're standing near Sister Beatrice now, who is still squinting at her pot of chamomile-infused honey, as if it holds the secrets of the universe. You're really tempted to ask if she is brewing a potion or just overthinking her breakfast spread. But the peaceful rhythm of this place keeps your sarcasm in check for now. The major historical fact here is that medieval nuns were often skilled apothecaries, blending faith and science in ways that would make a modern pharmacist raise an eyebrow. You step closer to Beatrice, who's now grinding dried mint with a mortar and pestle. Here's the obscure tidbit: the nuns believe their bees can sense human emotions. As you linger, Beatrice hands you a small vial of honey mixed with lavender. You've left the Stillroom now, following Sister Agnes across the courtyard toward the chapel. The sun is fully up, painting the convent stone walls in shades of gold and gray, though the air still carries a morning chill that makes you wish for a thicker cloak. That wattle fence you keep noticing, it's back again, sagging a little more under the weight of a climbing vine. You glance at the altar, half expecting to see a sticky smear, but it's pristine, the honey carefully cleaned away after each service. Historians still debate whether this practice was symbolic, or a holdover from older traditions that saw honey as a divine offering. But to the nuns, it's just part of their worship. You imagine God pausing mid-prayer to appreciate the gesture, like a cosmic foodie savoring an artisanal treat. You're starting to think it's the convent's unofficial mascot, charmingly imperfect, like a coworker who's always late but means well. Agnes leans over and whispers that it holds the convent, its most precious relic, a fragment of a comb from St. Hilda's own hive, or so they claim. You raise an eyebrow, wondering if it's just an old piece of wax. But the nun's reverence makes you hesitate. There's something comforting about their faith in these small, tangible things: honey, bees, a carved box. You lean back, letting the chapel's quiet warmth wrap around you. The bees' hum is fainter here, but it's still there, threading through the psalms like a lullaby. Your eyelids are heavy now, and you're not sure if it's the prayers or the honey you tasted earlier. But sleep is creeping closer. Agnes walks with purpose, her basket of honeycomb tucked under one arm. But her pace is slow enough for you to keep up without breaking a sweat. This place, you're learning, doesn't believe in hurrying. The major historical fact of this moment is that medieval convents were centers of spiritual and intellectual life, preserving knowledge through their scriptoria while also serving as places of worship. At St. Hilda's, the nuns' daily routine revolves around the divine office, 7 prayer sessions that mark the hours from dawn to dusk. The chapel you're approaching is the heart of this rhythm, where the nuns gather to sing psalms and offer their work, including their honey, to God. It's not just devotion. It's a schedule as rigid as a modern 9 to 5, except with more chanting and fewer coffee breaks. You smirk, imagining a nun sneaking a quick nap during a long psalm, only to be nudged awake by her neighbor. Inside the chapel, the air is cool and smells faintly of beeswax from the candles flickering on the altar. The light filters through narrow windows, casting patterns on the stone floor that dance like lazy fireflies. You sit on a wooden bench, its surface worn smooth by decades of quiet devotion, and listen as the nuns begin their mid-morning prayers. Their voices rise and fall, blending with the distant hum of the bees outside. It's like a duet between heaven and earth, though you suspect the bees are stealing the show. You're tempted to close your eyes, but Agnes shoots you a glance that's half warning, half amusement. God sees sleepers, she whispers, and you stifle a laugh. Fair enough. Here is the weird cultural tidbit. The nuns sometimes place tiny drops of honey on the altar during special prayers, believing it sweetens their petitions to God. As the prayers continue, you notice a small wooden box near the altar, carved with images of bees and flowers. You're slipping out of the chapel now, the nun's voices fading into a soft echo as you step back into the courtyard. The sun is climbing higher, warming the cobblestones under your feet, and you catch a whiff of baking bread from the convent's kitchen nearby. St. Hilda's Priory is no exception, with its gardens, bakery, and apiary working in harmony to keep the nuns fed and the village supplied. Inside, the air is warm and smells of yeast and wood fire, like a bakery you'd stumble into on a rainy afternoon. They share it with the poor during feast days, claiming it's as nourishing as scripture. You take a bite, and it's like biting into a summer afternoon, sweet, soft, and faintly floral. The honey's flavor lingers, tying you back to the hives you visited earlier. You're starting to see why the nuns treat their bees like sacred co-workers. They're not just making food. They're crafting moments of peace in a world that's often lean and hard. You chew slowly, letting the kitchen's warmth and the distant buzz of St. Cecilia's hive pull you deeper into this drowsy day. Agnes nudges you. Don't fall asleep standing up, she teases, and you grin, caught in the act. Sleep is winning, and you're not even mad about it. You eye the golden-crusted loaves cooling on a wooden rack, tempted to test the theory. Historians still debate whether this belief stemmed from Christian symbolism or a practical need to make their charity more appealing. But the villagers don't question it. They line up for the bread like it's Black Friday at a medieval Walmart. You're half convinced it's just the honey sweetness winning them over. But you're not about to argue with a warm loaf. Sister Edith, a round-faced nun with flour-dusted hands, is kneading dough with the focus of a sculptor. She glances up and smirks. Hungry already? The bees work harder than you do. You laugh, caught off guard by her sass. These nuns, you're learning, have a knack for slipping humor into their holiness. Like sneaking sugar into a health drink, you lean against the doorframe, watching Edith shape loaves with practiced ease. The rhythm is soothing as the bees hum outside. The honey you've been obsessing over isn't just a luxury. It's a staple, used in everything from bread to healing salves. You picture the nuns as the ultimate homesteaders, running a medieval co-op. That would make any modern farmer's market jealous. No kale smoothies here, though just honey, bread, and a whole lot of prayer. The wattle fence, yes, it's still here. Stubbornly clinging to its lopsided charm casts a jagged shadow across your path. You're following Sister Agnes again, who's now carrying a small clay pot of honey. Her steps measure like she's pacing herself for a marathon of serenity. You're starting to envy her calm. Your modern life, with its endless notifications and coffee runs, feels like a distant, frantic dream in this slow-moving world. The major historical fact here is that medieval convents were often self-sufficient communities, producing their own food, clothing, and even medicines. Agnes leads you toward the kitchen, a low stone building with a chimney puffing gentle wisps of smoke. Here's the obscure tidbit. The nuns believe their bread, when baked with holy honey, carries a blessing that strengthens the body and soul. Edith hands you a small piece of bread, still warm, with a drizzle of honey glistening on top. You're out in the convent's garden now, the midday sun filtering through a canopy of apple trees. The air is alive with the hum of bees, darting between blossoms like tiny, over-caffeinated monks on a mission. The garden at St. Hilda's is a patchwork of herbs, vegetables, and flowers, each plant chosen for its practical or sacred purpose. Rosemary for remembrance, lavender for purity, and, of course, flowers to keep the bees happy. It's a living pharmacy and pantry, tended with the same care the nuns give their prayers. They claim the songs mimic the divine order of nature. Coaxing the herbs to flourish, smell this when you're tired, she says, her eyes twinkling. It'll keep you awake. Or not. You laugh, tucking the sprig into your pocket. The garden feels like a cocoon, shielding you from the world's noise. The bees' hum is a constant backdrop, blending with the rustle of leaves and the soft crunch of your footsteps on the gravel path. You're sinking deeper into the convent's rhythm, your eyelids growing heavier with each passing moment. The sun is warm, the bees are singing, and sleep is calling your name like an old friend. You're not sure how much longer you can resist. You hum a little tune under your breath, wondering if it works on houseplants. Historians still debate whether this practice was a spiritual ritual or a practical way to pass the time, but the nuns swear by it. You picture Agnes serenading a patch of lavender, and the image is so wholesome you almost forget how sleepy you are. You imagine them as medieval influencers, posting about their hashtag garden life if only they had parchment Instagram. The thought makes you smirk. Hashtag blessed, indeed. That wattle fence is back, of course, now half hidden by a tangle of wild roses that seem to have a personal vendetta against neatness. You're walking with Sister Agnes again, who's swapped her honey pot for a basket of herbs, her fingers brushing against rosemary and sage. As she checks the plants, you try to mimic her calm, but you ray distracted by a bee that has decided your sleeve is the most interesting thing. In the garden, Agnes chuckles. Relax. It's just saying hello. Sure, you think, like a co-worker who hovers to close up the water cooler. The major historical fact here is that medieval gardens were vital to convent life, providing food, medicine, and even spiritual symbolism. You kneel beside Agnes as she snips a sprig of thyme, her movements slow and deliberate, like she's conducting a silent orchestra. The garden is quiet, save for the bees and the occasional chirp of a sparrow. You notice a small stone statue tucked among the herbs, a crude carving of a bee, its wings chipped but still proud. Agnes explains as a gift from a villager, carved to thank the nuns for a honey salve that healed his daughter's fever. You're touched, but you can help wondering if the villager just didn't know how to draw a nun. The statue's earnestness is oddly endearing, like a child's drawing pen to a fridge. Here's the weird cultural tidbit: the nuns sometimes sing to their plants, believing it encourages system, encourages growth. Agnes hands you a sprig of lavender. Its scent sharp and soothing as you rub it between your fingers. You're still in the garden, the sun now hanging high, bathing the convent in a golden glow that makes everything feel like it's been dipped in honey. The wild rose is climbing that ever-present wattle fence. Yes, it's still here, defying gravity and good taste weighed gently in a breeze that carries the scent of earth and lavender. You're walking beside Sister Agnes, who's now inspecting a patch of clover, her basket of herbs overflowing like a medieval version of a farmer's market hall. A bee lands on your hand, and you freeze, half expecting it to deliver a sermon. When a sister dies, they tell the hives, speaking softly to the bees as if they're passing on the news to God. You picture Agnes whispering to St. Cecilia's hive about a departed nun, and it's so tender you almost forget to smirk. Historians still debate whether this tradition was unique to convents or borrowed from rural folklore, but at St. Hilda's, it's as routine as morning prayers. You glance at the hives, wondering what secrets they're buzzing to the skies. The thought is oddly comforting, like knowing your texts are being read by someone who cares. Agnes smirks. You starting to understand the nuns bond with their bees. It's not just about honey. It's about trust, rhythm, a shared life. The garden hums around you, the bees weaving through the air like tiny golden threads. Your lavender sprig, still tucked in your pocket, brushes against your fingers, and you're tempted to sniff it, but the sun's warmth and the hive's drone are already pulling you under. You yawn, and Agnes glances back with a knowing smile. "Told you the bees would win," she says. You laugh softly, but sleep is closing in, and the garden feels like the safest place to let it take you. It likes you, or it thinks you're a flower. You roll your eyes, but you're secretly flattered. Being mistaken for a flower isn't the worst compliment. The major historical fact here is that beekeeping was a skilled trade in medieval convents, often led by women who understood the delicate balance of hives better than most. At St. Hilda's, the nuns' apiary isn't just a side hustle, it's a science, passed down through generations of sisters who've learned to read the bees' moods. Like a weather forecast, they know when to harvest, when to let the hives rest, and how to coax the bees into producing more honey without upsetting their tiny, buzzing society. It's like running a co-op where the workers are winged and slightly judgy. You imagine a nun negotiating with a queen bee, and the thought makes you chuckle. Good luck outsmarting St. Cecilia's hive. You follow Agnes to a corner of the garden where the hives are clustered, their straw skeps glowing in the sunlight like little golden domes. She points to one hive, slightly larger than the others, and explains it's the mother hive. The first one established when the convent was founded. The nuns treat it like a sacred relic, whispering prayers over it during harvest time. You notice a faint carving on the skep across, entwined with a bee, barely visible under years of wear. It's charming, like something you'd see on a hipster's coffee mug, but here it feels earnest. Grounding, you lean closer, and the hum vibrates through you, steady and warm, like a heartbeat you can feel in your bones. Here's the obscure tidbit. The nuns believe that bees carry messages to heaven. Agnes kneels beside the mother hive, checking its combs with a gentleness that makes you feel like an intruder. You're moving away from the hives now, trailing Agnes toward the scriptorium, a small stone building tucked against the convent's outer wall. The sun is past its peak, casting long shadows that stretch across the courtyard like lazy fingers. At St. Hilda's, the scriptorium is a quiet haven where the nuns transcribe religious texts, herbal recipes, and even beekeeping notes, their quills scratching out wisdom that will outlast them. You spot one now, a bee with a halo, tucked beside a Latin prayer. It's so charming you almost forget it's a 12th century doodle. Historians still debate whether these drawings were playful or symbolic, but the nuns clearly enjoyed their art. You imagine Sister Margaret giggling as she sketches, and it's like catching a friend doodling in a meeting. Small rebellions in a life of routine. It's not just busy work, it's a legacy, ensuring that the convent's knowledge, holy honey included, survives the centuries. The scriptorium feels like a time capsule, preserving not just words, but the nuns' quiet devotion. Your lavender sprig is still in your hand, its scent mingling with the smell of ink and old parchment. The afternoon light filters through a narrow window, dusting the room with gold, and you feel your eyelids droop. The bee's song, the quill's rhythm, the convent's comments all weaving together, pulling you towards sleep like a gentle tide. You lean back, wondering how much longer you can stay awake in this golden, buzzing world. You picture a nun hunched over a parchment, her fingers stained with ink, and it's like watching someone post to a medieval cloud drive, saving data for a future you're now living in. The thought makes you smirk. Dropbox, eat your heart out. The wattle fence still here, still a glorious mess, marks the edge of the garden. Its roses now catching the afternoon light in a way that is almost too pretty for its own good. You're carrying the lavender sprig from earlier, twirling it between your fingers, and the scent keeps you grounded, though the bee's hum still lingers in your ears like a song you can't shake. Agnes notices and raises an eyebrow. "Careful," she says. "Keep sniffing that, and you'll dream of bees all night." You grin, wondering if that's a warning or a promise. The major historical fact here is that medieval scriptoria were vital for preserving knowledge, with nuns often playing a key role in copying manuscripts. Inside the scriptorium, the air is cool and smells of parchment and wax. Shelves line the walls, stacked with manuscripts bound in leather. Their pages yellowed but pristine. Sister Margaret, a younger nun with ink smudges on her cheek, is copying a page of herbal remedies, her quill moving with a precision that's almost hypnotic. You lean closer, catching a glimpse of a recipe for a honey-based salve. The illustration shows a bee perched on a flower, drawn with such care it could be a museum piece. You're impressed, but you can't help whispering, "Bet she spent more time on that bee than her prayers." Margaret glances up, her lips twitching. "God loves bees too," she says, and you laugh, caught by her quick wit. Here's the weird cultural tidbit: the nuns sometimes hide tiny bee drawings in the margins of their manuscripts, like medieval Easter eggs for future readers. You sit on a wooden stool, watching Margaret work, the scratch of her quill blending with the faint hum of bees outside. You're leaving the scriptorium now, stepping back into the courtyard where the afternoon sun hangs low, painting the cobblestones in shades of amber and shadow. The wattle fence shape still here, sagging like it's given up on standing straight, catches your eye. Its wild roses glowing like they're auditioning for a sunset scene. The refectory, where the nuns eat, is a place of silence and scripture, with one sister reading aloud from a holy text while the others dine. It's not just about eating. It's a ritual, tying the nuns to their faith and each other. You glance at the golden drizzle on your bread, wondering if it's true or just a clever way to justify a sweet tooth. Historians still debate whether this belief was a local quirk or part of a broader Christian tradition linking honey to divine favor. But the nuns don't seem to care about the theology. They eat, they pray, they trust. You take a bite, and the honey's warmth spreads through you, like a hug from the inside. It's no wonder pilgrims swear by this stuff. It's practically a spiritual experience. You picture them sitting in rows, chewing bread with the same focus they give their prayers. And it's like a medieval version of a silent retreat, except with better honey. The bees' hum is faint here, but you can still hear it through the open window, blending with the rustle of habits and the clink of wooden spoons. Your lavender sprig rests on the table, its scent mingling with the meal's warmth. You're sinking deeper into the convent rhythm, your eyelids heavier with each bite. The psalm drones on, and you're starting to think Sister Edith's voice is as hypnotic as the bees. You yawn, catching Agnes's amused glance across the table. Sleep's creeping closer, and you're not sure you want to fight it anymore. You smirk, imagining a modern wellness guru trying to market this as mindful munching. You're still clutching the lavender sprig from the garden. It sent a faint reminder of the bee's hum that seems to follow you everywhere. Sister Agnes is ahead, leading you toward the refectory, her steps slow but steady, like she's walking to the rhythm of a hymn only she can hear. You're starting to wonder if you'll ever match her knack for calm. Your phone's phantom buzz in your pocket feels like a distant memory, and honestly, you're not mad about it. The major historical fact here is that medieval convents like St. Hilda's were communal hubs, where meals were as much about spiritual bonding as sustenance. Inside the refectory, the air is warm, smelling of fresh bread and the faint sweetness of honey. The long wooden table is set with simple wooden bowls, each holding a modest portion of stew, bread, and a drizzle of that famous holy honey. You sit at the end, feeling like a guest at a very exclusive, very quiet dinner party. Sister Edith, the sassy baker from earlier, is reading today. Her voice steady as she recites a psalm. You catch her eye, and she pauses just long enough to wink, as if to say, "Don't fall asleep in your stew." You grin, tempted to whisper back that you're trying, but the honey's making it hard. Here's the obscure tidbit: the nuns believe that eating honey during a meal strengthens their prayers, as if the sweetness carries their words closer to God. You lean back, listening to Edith's voice weave through the refectory's quiet.